Hi, it's Jo and Steve from Freshagenda, and this week we're taking a look at what's happening with New Zealand trade.
Pack it up, pack it in, let me begin.
Steve, we had a bit of a lift in trade for New Zealand in July.
We did. So putting it into context though, 1 month is not a massive turnaround. What we're seeing here is I thought it was interesting to actually go back and look at the rolling average of where trade volumes have been, which are flat. And as you can see on the right there, the 12 months to July, we are down on the prior year. And it's been a story of declining trade, particularly whole milk powder, which is the main product, for 4 years. Look at the chart on the left, it's because there's no growth in milk.
Yes.
But across the platform, pretty much flat trade. In recent data though, we've seen 2018 looking a little bit different. Skim milk powder's well down, but the fats are up.
Yeah, that's off a very low comparative, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, butter was very short last year, which is why we saw those very high prices, but prices coming down a bit.
Yeah,
Bit more movement.
Before we go to butter, I guess this is the stuff that everyone looks at, this whole milk powder chart. So July is up. The most important stat though is since last November, when the shipping season gets underway in earnest, and really we tend to look at the New Zealand shipments as year to year from November through to October. To collect the milk, start processing, that's when they start shipping. So we're down 2% since that time, which is more an indicator of the health of that Chinese demand.
Sure.
Over to butter. Sorry, I stole your thunder there. But we did an exercise here to add up over time the butter trade. You can see that big dip that happened in response to those high prices.
The dip in trade.
The dip in trade, yeah. So that reached its bottom early this year. It's starting to climb, and you can see where it's climbing. The chart on the right with those growth percentages year on year in the 2018 year over the prior year when we were falling. So it's picking up strongly in China. Australia's making far less butter, so we're an important market now. But also that MENA region also taking a lot more. That's a price-sensitive market. We think with prices being back up again now, they are back up. The ship prices now are higher where they are, and we're seeing trade drop off in recent data. So
very sensitive.
Yeah, it is very sensitive. Be interesting to see where it goes.
So where to from here is the question. I suppose part of the trade story is that there hasn't been a huge supply growth in New Zealand for the last few years, but that could change. Yeah,
and that's a nice segue to look at these wonderful pasture growth charts we've just developed out of some large amounts of data, but showing that we're in for a cracker. So that shows the 2018 year. That's the weekly growth indicators for South and North Islands being well up on average, well up in the prior year, and out of the band of history that we've seen since 2010.
Yeah.
So
bit scary, really.
It is a bit scary. Not many red flags on the horizon. The soil moisture chart over the right-hand side there shows that some regions are a little bit under, but
not many. It's mostly average or wetter than normal. So yeah.
So looking ominous.
Yes.
Jump around, jump around, jump around.
Now turning to the US, always interesting, and the rescue package to offset the impact of Trump's trade terror is here.
War on trade.
Yeah.
So backpedaling a little, the theory was that the steel tariffs were imposed on those bad guys who are ruining American manufacture by sending cheap steel into the American market. So slapping tariffs on those brought retaliation from Mexico and China. And then the wish was that President Trump would wade in and say, we're the good guys, we'll save you against those bad guys, we'll throw some money at this to make up for it. So the dairy industry stumped up with a claim. I think the government said they were going to spend about $12 billion. The dairy industry said they thought they'd be worth about 1.2 to 1.6 of that. They did a piece of work to work out what the loss was. By their reckoning, the hole in milk prices that they're going to see over this Forward period is about 1.5 billion. They just finished an exercise and published that last week. Just as the government this week announced that they would give them a rescue package of about a tenth of what they're after. So
Wait a minute, Steve. Those charts, those columns don't look exactly equal.
No, one's a shadow or a fraction of the other. So what got announced earlier this week was a milk price supplement of 12 cents a kilo, which is about going towards 0.3 of a cent per litre.
So it's all US dollars we're talking there?
That's US dollars. Yep. 127 million, as opposed to what the industry thought they would get us 1.2 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So there's very disappointed people.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard many farmers say they didn't think it was really going to come to them to the extent that they hoped, but
this is well short.
Yeah, it's well short. There are other devices to help. Also announced was 85 million in product purchases. We don't know what products yet, but we're showing there an indicator if it's all used to purchase butter, that would be a meaningful total.
Yes.
12% of stocks at the end of July.
With cheddar, which is at a record high, inventories at a record high, it'd just be 6% based on those numbers.
Yeah, the industry probably like them to buy up all the barrels sitting around. It's hard to tell how much of that stock exists, but it's a lot lower in value at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
The impact of taking that butter off the market might actually have a higher price impact than what's been handed out in the other part of the package, ironically, if it goes that way.
Yep.
The other part of it is a trade promotion kit worth 200 million, unspecified, but I guess what's likely is anyone putting up a trade promotion type project would be funded through this. So there's a lot of speculation around this, I'm sure, but I wonder which markets that might be targeted at. Are there any markets that they've still got friends in?
Good question. Well, they're friends again with the EU. Oh no, they're the enemy. They could put in here.
Southeast Asia, they're part of TPP, so that's probably not going to work. China, no, that's gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Middle East?
Maybe we'll get back to our audience on that one when we've worked it out. Okay. So, yes, not what people thought it was going to be.
I'm the cream of the crop. I rise to the top.
All right, Joe, your chart of the week.
Well, this week, while we're on the topic of trade agreements, as we all know, we've had a change of Prime Minister, and it looks like ScoMo might be given an awesome photo opportunity signing an FTA with Indonesia later this week. These talks started in 2010, I believe, restarted in 2016. Apparently, the relationship was a lot better under Prime Minister Turnbull and Widodo. So Indonesia's been a reasonable market for Australian dairy. It's dropped off in the last few years, Steve, but obviously we haven't had the product to sell. A few interesting trends there, I thought. Obviously, skim milk powder is the main game. We've seen an almost a replacement of our whole milk powder exports with fat-filled milk powder. Obviously, a little bit more of a price-effective product there, and we haven't been making much whole milk powder. But when you look at the skim competition, we're losing ground there over the last few years. Again, not a lot of product, but also a lot more competition. So
we peaked as an exporter of skim milk powder in 2015 and have been sliding since that time. It's interesting on the right hand side how aggressive Europeans and Americans have been to pick up share as that market has grown, because the market's got bigger.
Sure.
But the aggression of those two other exporters in the last couple of years has been quite strong.
Yeah.
So maybe we've come at this a bit late. But there's certainly some market to claw back, and maybe our agreement will help do that. But
better late than never. Yeah.
As you say, will we have the product?
Will we have the product is the other thing, and every little bit helps, probably. Yeah.
But I think it's our biggest skim milk powder market at the moment in terms of exports, bigger than China. So it's an important one to get a better holding.
Sure.
All right, pretty much wraps it up. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week.